Hi, my name's Brendon and welcome to Five Star Conversations, where we talk with hoteliers making a difference on the hotel industry. And today I have the pleasure of talking with Adrian Williams. Welcome, Adrian.
And thanks so much. Great to be with you today.
Fantastic. Firstly, Adrian, congratulations on the new position as Chief Operating Officer for the Pacific for Accor. I believe it's day number 5.
Thank you. Yes, day number 5. We've resolved everything and we can put our feet up on the desk now. So thank you. It's good to be the first weekend.
I'm very impressed.
Well, the good thing is we're in great shape to begin with. So we remain in a good position. I haven't broken anything in the first 5 days. I probably should put it that way.
That's good. That's good. Adrian started his career in Canada at the iconic Fairmont Banff Springs Hotel. Adrian has 30 years experience in hotel operations, including 25 years with Accor. Adrian has held various senior leadership positions within Accor, and in 2018, he led the integration of Accor's acquisition of the Mantra Group, bringing in more than 140 hotels and 6,500 team members into the group. In his new role as the Chief Operating Officer for the Pacific, he now heads Accor's operations across the Pacific region with almost 400 hotels and ancillary businesses, with 21,000 team members in Australia, New Zealand, Fiji, and Hawaii. Adrian holds a Bachelor of Business in Catering and Hotel Management and a Masters of Marketing from Victoria University. He's a board member of the Australian Accommodation Association and a long-standing board member of the Melbourne Convention Bureau. Welcome again, Adrian.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
The first thing I wanted to say I'm super proud of, it is the first time I've ever got to interview another Victoria University graduate. Everyone up until now has been through Blue Mountains or something like that, so I'm thrilled.
No, I agree, and I know that you've had Scott Boys and Tishno who come out of that school. You were a few years ahead of me at VU and was pioneering, so thank you for setting the stage for us.
No problems. I still remember my student number, 8400839. Obviously, we used to have to quote it every morning or something.
Oh.
So tell me, you're starting your career in Canada. Why was that? Why Canada? Because I think you grew up in Melbourne.
I did grow up in Melbourne, and as we said, went to uni in Melbourne. Well, Canada was a place that I was super interested in because we had an exchange student that lived with us who was French Canadian. It was my dream to then go over to Quebec and work over there for some time. The only problem was I didn't speak French, and therefore couldn't get a job. So I was lucky enough to get a job at a place called Banff Springs. I knew nothing about it. There was, of course, no internet then, so I couldn't search it up. I just heard it was a pretty magical place. So I can't believe how lucky I was to go to one of the best places in the world. And it was actually, not only was I lucky to do that, that's where I met my wife. So it was pretty transformative for me for a whole range of reasons.
Okay. Yeah, I had a look at the property online. It's amazing. Lovely property. And you were there for a couple of years, or how long? It was just like a 1-year exchange type thing, and then Australia, or how did your career progress from Banff?
Well, actually, I'd say that that was the first hotel I worked in, and that was kind of step 3. Before that, I'd been working in restaurants. So I like to say that I started out really working in food and beverage. Yeah. And that was, as a 15-year-old working in a restaurant, and I was a kitchen hand, and that was just an unbelievable job to be working in a kitchen with qualified chefs and an amazing owner of the restaurant. It was so dynamic. It was so interesting. The intensity of that meal period. If you've ever worked in a restaurant, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's super intense, super rewarding. And the best thing is at the end of the meal period, it's all done. You clean up, and then everyone pats themselves on the back, and then comes back and does it again. Yep. I found that unbelievably captivating. But it's interesting because at that point, I was planning on a career in law. I was going to study law, and the first thing that I was introduced into our industry was that. I thought that was pretty interesting, and it was at the period in the late 80s where the tourism industry was really starting to blossom. The Japanese, of course, were making big investments, creating big legacy hotels and lots of other investments. So it was pretty dynamic, and my parents, for some reason, convinced me, don't go and do law. It doesn't sound overly interesting. You seem to be liking hospitality with restaurants. Why don't you go and have a look at that? And that's really how I ended up studying instead at VU. And then during my time at uni, I guess it's a rite of passage. What do you do when you work at uni? You've got to work in a bar, of course.
Yep.
So I guess the second part of my connection with the industry was the famous knockoff drinks. I mean, that was a revelation. I mean, it was fun to work in a bar and fun to have that energy of loud music and people having a good time, and you're kind of in control of that. I really loved that. But what was best was when everyone leaves the bar, then you have knockoffs. You sit there with the rest of your teammates, and you talk about war stories of the day and all of the challenges that you had. And it was really the intensity of restaurants, having knockoff drinks with great people and having a good time with people, of that same age. And then working at Banff Springs. I mean, at the time, just to paint a picture, the Banff Springs Hotel was then 960 rooms. So it's a monster. It's a bit smaller now from refurbishment. 27 food and beverage outlets, 5,000 seat convention centre, 27-hole golf course. It's a real hotel. It's one of those big monsters. And I remember day one walking through the tunnels of the hotel, and I could not believe where I was. It wasn't the beautiful front end. It was underneath the bowels of the hotels. There were mystery offices and outlet equipment, and it was just something completely different, something I'd never been exposed to before. And I was absolutely captivated. So really it was those kind of three things: intensity of restaurants, knockoff drinks, and the mystery of the behind the scenes of a great hotel.
Interesting. Sounds a little bit like Disneyland in a sense that tunnels underneath the resort that allow staff to move seamlessly without interrupting guests. And I presume winter there would be quite horrific, right?
Winter was amazing, actually. I mean, yes, of course it was cold, minus 20, but everything's built for that. It was the Banff Springs is built as a castle, and it was part of the creation of the great Trans-Canada Canadian Pacific Railway. And Banff was built there because of the hot springs, and the guy that ran the Canadian Pacific Railways was from Scotland, from Banff, and this was his homage to his hometown. So he built a proper hotel. You're right, it is a lot like Disneyland because we had to dress up in character, as it were, and the history of the connection back to Scotland was brought through in the story of that hotel. So I started off in the kitchens, and as I said, we had a lot of outlets. The kitchens had 350 chefs in it, so it was huge. And once I moved from the kitchens to the front of house, I was a doorman, and my uniform was a traditional Scottish kilt.
I was going to say, oh wow,
yeah. So a little bit like Disneyland, where you dress up in character. Yeah, I had to dress up in a Scottish kilt. I don't have the legs to be wearing a kilt, but as a 19-year-old, that was something pretty unique and pretty fun. And I must say, I probably didn't do too much work. My job was to greet people and have my photograph taken. And back in those days, we had 75 busloads of Japanese come through every day.
Wow!
And every single person on the bus wanted a photograph with this funny-looking guy with a kilt. So I'm in the photo albums of countless Japanese people's memories of their holiday in Banff.
Yep. There you go. Well, that's amazing. Interesting story. Fantastic. And then when you left Banff and you came back to Australia, did you start straight away with Accor?
No, I started for a company called All Seasons. And All Seasons, of course, was a great Australian success story built out of Perth, which interestingly at that time saw a number of hotel groups come out of Perth. A long time ago now, All Seasons was an acquisition of Accor. So I joined Accor through the All Seasons acquisition.
Yep. Understand. Okay. And where were you when you came back to Australia? What part of Australia were you in?
I came back to Melbourne.
Okay.
Family's in Melbourne. So yes, I came back here in Melbourne. And then my journey with Accor, I must say, at the time that we were bought by Accor, I knew nothing of Accor. I just knew it was a hotel company with some great brands, and Novotel was something that I always had great respect for. And then really through Accor, I've been extraordinarily lucky to have opportunity on opportunity on opportunity. And I've lived in most places across Australia. I spent time in Geelong, which was nice because I was actually born in Geelong. So to go back there for my first general manager role was really nice for my parents. I spent time in Adelaide. I ran our economy division out of Sydney. And that was my first experience running running a multi-site portfolio, which was an unbelievable opportunity. And working out of our corporate office in Sydney, it wasn't just about running the hotels, but it was spending time with some icons of our company and working with them in the office so closely. That was unbelievably important for the development of my career, and I'm very, very thankful for that period. Interestingly, that then led to the GFC, and funny enough, I was actually made redundant from Accor, which is interesting because I never, of course, left Accor, and it wasn't really a George Costanza moment where I just kept turning up. I was very lucky to be given an opportunity to then go up to our casino property in Cairns, and I didn't know at the time much about that, but it was a great gift. Living in Cairns was excellent for my family. Spending time in that property was unbelievable, and working in the casino part of the industry gave me a whole range of other insights to something that was very, very different to my history within Accor and the team. Some of it is still there. I keep in contact with, taught me so much about something that's a bit of an adjunct to what we were doing in hotels, which was just a really amazing experience. From there, I went to Perth and ran our WA and NT region, and then moved back to Melbourne, where my remit's kind of grown.
Wow. The Pullman Reef Casino seems to pop up. I mean, I know it was in Simon McGrath's history as well. He was there before he moved to Sydney to take off on the role. So obviously, as you said, there's something about that property that gives you a really good grounding. It's such an educational experience.
You're exactly right. I mean, it's a beautiful property. Beautiful property. That mix of an amazing boutique hotel where you really need to be providing a different kind of service to a traditional city hotel. The lessons are the same. The interface between a casino and the hotel gives you something that a traditional hotel doesn't. And the other thing is that within that property, it's got massively overscale food and beverage because, of course, it's not there for the hotel. It's there for the millions of visitors that come through the doors for the casino.
Yeah. Wow. So Adrian, we'll start with the questions, and I think we've pretty much answered the first one. It's, did you choose hospitality? And correct me if I'm wrong, but from the sounds of it, you were in the industry, as you said, in food and beverage, and your parents encouraged you, which I find quite interesting because parents would love to have a lawyer in the family, but they said, why don't you go into hospitality? Is that pretty much how it happened?
Oh, it's exactly how it happened, and I didn't choose hospitality. No, it wasn't really a conscious thought. And at 17, when you're at school and you're putting down what your preferences are and trying to map it out, I think very few 17-year-olds have got the faintest idea of what they should do. So no, I went into hospitality because of my parents, as I said, and I studied at VU really because I didn't have a strong conviction to do law, and I thought, well, I'll start out this and have a look at it, and then I'll see where I go. I always felt that I would spend a bit of time in hospitality and then move to something else. The problem with that is I didn't realize the amount of opportunity that hospitality broadly and hotels in particular could give. And at any moment that I was starting to think, all right, what am I going to do next? What's next in the journey? Another opportunity came up, and I've been really fortunate to have opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. And there's no possible way I could leave the industry because there's always something really cool and interesting to do next.
That's great. Unfortunately, I think hospitality is not seen as a career as much these days, but from every guest that I've interviewed, they have shown that there's so much potential, and there's just opportunity after opportunity to travel, to meet people. the world is effectively your oyster if you want in hospitality. And it's probably something we need to promote a little bit more to people outside the industry, to build it up again. Because I think from my understanding, student numbers are down in hospitality courses. It's not seen as that course that you and I saw it as back in the 80s. So
it's interesting. I think you're probably right, but maybe I've got a slightly different view on it than that. That I don't think that you necessarily have to convince a graduate these days or someone just starting out these days that they need to have a lifelong career in hospitality. I think what we do provide is an amazing set of opportunities, and there really is a job for everyone. You can be an entry level person as a kitchen hand, as I was. You can be a lawyer. You can be an architect. I mean, there is a range of skills that we have in our industry that is broader than just what we think narrowly as a hospitality worker. What I'm really proud of our industry, and I think this is, for me, the big story of hospitality, is that we train the nation's workforce. How many people that might be studying a range of other things, banking, commerce, law, or whatever it might be, but have a job in our hotels? And we teach them how to work, how to front up and interact with the public. We give them skills that they might not otherwise get. And then 20 years down the line, they talk fondly of their time in hospitality, their time in hotels, their time in restaurants. We should be super proud, I think, of our role of training the workers right broadly across the economy. And if we can really take our ownership of that, we'll keep some of those good people that maybe didn't think that they were going to go into hospitality. They get hooked. Then I think we've won.
Very true. Very true. Adrian, is there a funny or memorable, embarrassing story from the early part of your career that you're happy to share?
Brendon, there's way too many embarrassing stories for me to share with you on this, because I note, of course, that record is going. So we could talk offline about some embarrassing stories, but I'll give you one. And this was, we mentioned about working in bars in the early days at uni, and that was at a time in the early 90s. It was a recession, and it was impossible to get a job. It was impossible to get a job as a barman. I remember writing an application, printing out an application, sending it in, and tens of applications going in, and you turn up to a job interview and there's 100 people in a queue.
Wow.
And invariably, I didn't get it. There was a theme. We kept missing out on jobs. So I turned up for an interview, and the general manager said, "Have you worked in a bar before?" And of course, by this point, I said, "Yes, I've got lots of experience behind a bar." I'm not sure the robustness of his interview, because he hired me, and day one, drink number one behind the bar, and I've got full confidence that I can do this. I can pour a wine, I can make a Scotch and Coke, and pour a beer, no problems.
Yep.
And the first person says to me, "Can I have a shandy?" Now, it's probably the first and only time that anyone's ever asked for a shandy. And I then turned around and looked at the back bar, and I'm looking at the spirits, trying to work out where a shandy was. And I open up the fridge and I'm trying to find out a shandy. I had no idea what a shandy was. Unbelievable. And embarrassingly, I then had to ask the guest what a shandy was. She was quite disgusted, and she said it's a beer and lemonade. So yes, that was a bit embarrassing, but at least I bluffed my way and got the job.
Good on you. It's a really surprising drink to order at a nightclub. I mean, it's what my grandparents used to give us as kids. Lots of lemonade and a little bit of beer, and that was interesting choice of drink for someone at a bar.
Well, it probably talks about the quality of the bar that I got the job at.
Okay, fair enough. Adrian, what is it, or what is it inspires you? What gives you your why?
It's a good question, and taking on the new role as head of Accor across the Pacific, these kind of things I've been thinking of over the Christmas break, and reflecting, and I guess trying to understand these things a little bit more fully. And it's funny because early in my career, the inspiration was those great legends of hospitality, the general managers that they just seemed like they were something else again. You know, they were someone that you would look at and aspire to. And you know, in the Canadian context, there was this great general manager, Ted Canane. He was a hero of that hotel. There was, in that property, there were 1,500 staff. I never got to meet Ted personally, but he was this mythical creature of the hotel, that he lived in every corner. Everyone spoke about him in hushed tones. And he was inspirational by the way that he had, one man had created this culture that everyone knew and understood the required level of service, the expectation, how to care for each other. That was very, very inspirational. And yeah, I always thought, wouldn't it be great to be one of those kind of guys? And it's interesting, at this stage of my career, I certainly haven't reached that level, but what I am now is I look now at the next generation, the new starters that are coming into our industry and into our group. And their enthusiasm, their ideas, you know, they're full of hope. They're full of inspiration, really, and I love that. I really do feel now that when you spend time with these guys that have unbounded enthusiasm, that's just amazing. And that then means it's our responsibility as leaders of the business to unlock them, to give them the opportunities that we were given, throw them at things before they're ready. I know that my colleagues, our leaders of Accor, we're all enthusiastic about that. That really is the mission.
That's great. Yeah, okay. That's the hospitality way, isn't it? Throw them in the deep end a little bit, and we all get there, don't we?
Yeah, I think these days there's a lot of really good practices in our industry that probably wasn't there back in the early years of hospitality emerging in the 80s and 90s. And we're much better for it.
Yeah.
But the practices of giving someone who's got the right stuff an opportunity before they think that they're ready,
Yeah.
as a model, I can't think of anything better to inject enthusiasm into our industry and our teams.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, that's a great point. Adrian, before our interview today, I asked you if you could have anything printed on a T-shirt. What would that be? A T-shirt that says, "I want to be rock star." Tell us a little bit more about that. What's behind that?
Well, that's very funny. Now, of course, I didn't say that I want a T-shirt that says printed, "I want to be a rock star." But you're quite right for putting it on there, because that is me. When I was going through university, actually before university, I was a drummer in a grunge band.
Grunge band.
And I had the long hair and everything, believe it or not. Yeah, so we released a couple of CDs. We had great airplay on community radio, and the early days of Triple J. It would have been great to be a rock star. The problem with being a rock star is you need talent, and as a drummer, I was probably lacking talent. Now, the good thing is that back then we did have merch, and we actually did have T-shirts of our band back then. So yes, you're quite right, Brendon. I want to be rock star.
That's impressive. Okay, that you had CDs, you had merchandise, and you got airplay. I mean, it sounds like you're almost there.
Well, the full part of that story is that the band was at its best days after I left it. So
Okay.
the CDs really are a tribute to those guys who pushed on after I left. But no, we didn't make it. But geez, it was great times.
Well, that's good. That's good. Adrian, what piece of advice were you given potentially early on in your career? What significance has it had for you?
Yeah, I guess back in the early days of Accor, we had a real growth mindset. Actually, we still have a real growth mindset that is in our DNA, and that's what we focus on every day. But part of that kind of startup culture that Accor had back in the early days was about saying yes to opportunity, about moving, about taking a range of different jobs and just keep on the move. And I thought that was really, really good advice. I've been really well served by moving, being open to opportunities, and doing things that I wasn't probably thinking about when the opportunity arose. And I think that still remains today, that you can build an amazing career, never leaving Brisbane, never leaving Auckland. There's a range of things that you can do. But I reckon that when you're more mobile than the city that you first live in, there's a whole range of other wonderful, exciting things. Working on islands, working in resorts, working in cities. That's the richness of the career. And, you do look back on those times and think, gee, that's amazing. And that's the richness that I hope for new people coming through in our career, that they get to experience that as well.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because I think Michael Johnson shared that same bit of advice. He always pretty much put his hand up for any opportunity, whether he knew, similar to yourself, working in the bar. He said, I'll do it. And he said, I don't know how to do it. And they said, that's fine, we'll train you. But he was quite willing to, to put his hand up and similar to yourself, move if that was, and as a result, he said there was opportunity after opportunity. So I like that.
Well, MJ's obviously better, because he said that he didn't know how to be a barman. I just bluffed my way. So credit to MJ on that. But there really is a range of different cool, interesting things as our industry continues to grow and expand. That just means that there is unlimited opportunity, really. One of the things that I was very fortunate in talking to Simon McGrath a number of years ago, I did say to him, I've got some more capacity. I'd like to do some more things. And I guess you've got to be careful of what you wish for, because he started throwing a whole range of weird projects at me, and strange things that you just wouldn't normally expect to be involved in. And that was excellent, because it pushed me into other areas that I wasn't thinking about, really weird projects. But it then led into 2018 to doing the integration of the Mantra acquisition. And what an unbelievable experience, to be able to go through our industry's largest acquisition. Yeah. That's something that doesn't happen often. And to spend time with that unbelievably entrepreneurial Mantra team at the time, and to learn their business and understand something that's quite different to the global Accor way, was something that just adds to the richness of how you approach things. But it also meant that through that process, you're meeting a bunch of new people. I mean, that's always good, but you're being challenged constantly on, why do you do this? Why is the system like that? What is this providing? And we do a lot of things that are super cool and really robust and important. But sometimes it's good to be tested on why. Yep. And the why is because it helps our teams, it helps our owners, and it provides something that's really important for growth for our owners and their properties. So constantly testing that, I think, was a really good experience over and above everything else that I got out of that integration. So really, I think, again, being open to things, you just never know where it goes, and I've been the great beneficiary of that.
There you go. No, I love that piece of advice. Adrian, we're going to sort of move on and talk a little bit about, obviously, the industry and technology now. Is there an emerging trend in the industry that you're very excited about?
Yeah, I mean, there's a range of things in our industry at the moment. I think our industry today is probably more dynamic than it has ever been. There's more breadth, I think, in our industry. Notwithstanding the challenges over COVID, but while COVID was happening, we still had lots of stuff going on in our industry. We had a whole range of new supply coming in, which brings a raft of new styles of properties in new locations, new service offers, and so on. So, COVID, I think, tells us that our industry is pretty strong. If that didn't kill our industry, it means that our industry is something that people want to be involved in. Guests are hungrier than ever for experiences, and that's what we provide. You think of in the 90s, when I was starting out in hotels, and the style of property in the Pacific is very different to what we have now. We have what we had then, but multiplied by 10, I guess, the level of service offers, and everything's expanded. So what are the emerging trends? We're going to see more of the same, and that's the expansion. That's the weaving of hospitality and hotels into more of everyday life. back in the 90s, who would have thought that you would get on a plane, you would stay in a hotel in Sydney and go and see a show at Accor Stadium? You wouldn't dream about it. And now people do it. So I don't think that will change. I think that our dynamic industry will continue to grow into areas that probably we're not thinking about. But today, top of mind as we go into 2024 is margin pressure. And while our industry is in a pretty good shape over the long term, margin pressure is undoubtedly there in the short term. And that's something that, really in thinking of the tech world, that's something that technology now really needs to step up and help be an enabler of productivity. And the good thing is that this time around, technology is part of the solution. I think that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think technology is definitely progressed, and it's right to help, I think, with margin pressure and obviously staffing shortages, picking up some of that slack and really helping the team. Yeah. Talking about technology, if you think about it over the years, what's been one of your biggest learnings around the technology space?
It's interesting. Probably a couple of things. I think technology is probably not as good as it promises and will change things more than you expect it to. And what do I mean by that? I remember going to a conference in Sydney as a rooms division manager in 2000, and we had a presentation of an automated check-in kiosk. Wow. And this was going to revolutionize the industry. Yep. We were going to roll out as an industry within 18 months self-check-in kiosks, and we're going to get rid of the front desk. Yep. And Brendon, you and I both know that didn't happen. Nope. But today, what are we seeing? We're seeing those self-check-in kiosks proliferate now across our part of the world, and in many cases, even not requiring those, and have automatic check-in on your mobile device. Yeah. So yes, we do have to wait a bit longer, maybe than technology promises, but I think things like that will be transformative. Removing that non-value add part of the experience, because no one checks in at the front desk looking for an amazing experience signing a registration card and looking at Privacy Act. I don't think they do. So if we can remove that, which frankly is annoying for guests and it doesn't add value for anybody, yep. If we can automate that and redeploy our teams to provide that service experience, so what a better industry to be in, and I think that's much more rewarding for the guests.
100%. And I'm so pleased to hear you say that, because I have been preaching for the last 4 or 5 years about pre-arrival check-in or contactless check-in or mobile check-in, whatever you want to call it. And in the early days, hoteliers were saying to me, no, the front desk experience, that's the first point of contact. We can't remove that. And it's like, it's not we have to remove it, but let's make it not about the transaction or the paperwork. Let's make it about a face-to-face, handing over the key, explaining the property, and doing a true welcome. So, no, it's music to my ears to hear that we are at that point where we appreciate, the guest doesn't necessarily enjoy it, and we need to streamline that for them. Speaking about technology, I was lucky enough to see Bill Gates when he came to Australia, and I think it was, showing my age, but I think it was about 1995. He was at the old convention centre, and he promised us at that point in time that we would work 2 days a week and we'd have 5 days a week off, and we wouldn't be using paper at all. There'd be no paper, and voice technology would be like the way to go. Everything would be operating on voice technology. So, it's interesting to see, how long things do take, because voice technology, Siri as an example, Google, they probably get it right, I don't know, 50% of the time, if you're lucky, 80%. Interesting. Okay.
I think voice technology now with generative AI, now we've got a shot at that being right. And of course, he was well before his time, I guess, in promising that in 1995. But it's interesting. In terms of paperless, it's great that we're now at a point of paperless. Sitting here in my office, I've got no paper, I've got no filing cabinet, my computer's not connected to a printer. So we are thankfully now at a point where we can be truly paperless.
That's good. Okay, that is good. Adrian, looking ahead a little bit, I mean, I think you normally work on 3, 5 year forecasts. Where do you think as an industry we might be in 3 years from now or 5 years? And is there anything you'd recommend hoteliers do to prepare for where we'll be?
Yeah, I think probably going back to my earlier comment, I don't know that in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, we're going to be dramatically different than we are today.
Yeah.
What I would say is that our industry will be bigger, richer, more dynamic than it is today. The rate of growth will continue, and I'm an advocate that we're a long way short in Australia of having maximum hotels. I think we can go a lot more. Of course, what we need right across the Pacific is the governments to do their part in helping do the demand driving piece. But you have a look at what governments are doing, what private enterprises and airlines, airports are doing. We will be a bigger, richer industry. There's no question about that. I think generative AI, though, is probably one of those big game changers I remember when the internet would start coming into our industry, we knew it was going to be big, but we didn't know how it was going to play out. And I think generative AI is one of those things. Now, within our company, within Accor, we've got a very large digital factory out of Paris that works on these things.
Yeah.
And having a look at a webinar that we did a couple of months ago now, there's stuff being worked on right now that it's around enhancing that customer experience. We touched on a bit of that with automated check-in. So the customer experience piece, I think, will be quite different through generative AI. Yep. Operational efficiency, we're using AI technology at the moment for running night audit and doing some transactional accounting stuff. And that will be pushed through, I think, more broadly across the industry as there's something of a standard for that kind of non-value add processing. Yeah. And that's going to be great. And then brand marketing, generative AI has got a real place to play there. That can work on enhancing visual content, content and marketing. There's a lot of work being done on that. Just simple copywriting, of course, AI can help with that. But if you then have a look at the pressures that we've got outside of margin pressures, which is something important for right now, and making sure that we've got good productivity. We know that the broader community is really interested in ESG, so we have to do work on food waste. We have to do work on decarbonisation, and I think we will see technology coming to the fore in both of those areas. In fact, we're in the process of rolling out food waste tools that uses AI to smartly provide detailed reports to the chef on weight and composition and menu item. Of that food waste, so you can then manage that much more effectively than just getting the weight. That kind of smart technology, I think, will be transformative for our business. And the final thing, I think, is that personalisation will get better and better as people use their devices more and have more of an opportunity to provide updated information. That modelled with, connected with AI, we will have a much more personal experience, I think.
100%. Yeah, I was at a conference last year where and it was Amazon presenting. They were talking about effectively, on a hotel website, the content that you would see and the content that I would see would be completely different based on personalization, and that's exciting. I think as an industry, we've been talking about it for a long time. But yeah, once we get to that point where you get served offers about bike riding and I get served offers about food and beverage or whatever, rather than the generic, golf type messages, which is unfortunately nowhere on my profile. I've never really taken up golf, but it's like it sometimes gets served to you. It's like, that is exciting, isn't it?
Oh, look, I think so. And from my own experience, and staying in hotels a lot, obviously, I don't drink much, so having a bottle of red wine as a guest amenity is useless to me. But as a Melburnian, I obsess about coffee. So that's something that can then be personalised, and I think that as part of the overall service offer that we have,
Yeah.
is the future. I mean, it's emerging now, and I think that will only get better as we move from what was an homogenous industry to something that is much richer and much more exciting.
Yeah. That's a really good point you picked up on, because I don't drink either. But often if I stay at a hotel, it's like, here's a bottle of wine, as you know, with compliments. It's like, well, it's good, but a bottle of mineral water would probably be better. Probably the last question before we wrap up, Adrian, is what advice would you give somebody starting out their hospitality career?
I think that, again, looking at my own career and the messaging that we've already really spoken about, to me, that worked well for me. And, I wish that for everybody starting out their career. And that then, by definition, says keep moving, actively seek different experiences. Working in Canada as a 19-year-old was something so far from where I grew up, but that shaped my life in many, many ways. And had I not been there, yeah, my life would have been very, very different. Of course, as I said, that's where I met my wife. But I think that really is the message. We've got an industry that can give you what you seek and what you take out of it. So get engaged. Maybe that's the answer. Get engaged.
Travel the world, get engaged, find your life partner. There you go.
Yeah, I mean that was probably good luck, or maybe good luck on my behalf. I don't know what Tracy would say, but that was good luck. But I would also say, and the role that I'm in, I love it. I love it when our team call me and reach out and ask for advice and provide feedback. And there's nothing more rewarding than a front office manager in a hotel making contact and saying, "Hey, Adrian, I just wanted to reach out and let you know this, or seek your advice on that." I encourage that. I think that's really interesting. And again, I know that our leaders in our business, we're always open to that. It's what makes the job probably most rewarding.
I love that, Adrian. Yeah, and I think it's something that as a junior in the industry, you sometimes don't expect for the leadership to be so open, but it's something, I think it's something special in hospitality that executive leaders, and I've recounted before, but I must have been 22, a little bit lost between jobs, and an ex-GM of mine said, go and see David Sargent. And I just called up and made an appointment, and he gave me 45 minutes of his time, which in hindsight now, it's like, my God, getting 45 minutes of his time was amazing.
Unbelievable, and a guy that was a pioneer in our industry, that's really meaningful for you. And again, we have an obligation, I think, as people have been in the industry a little bit longer to provide that also.
Yeah, no, it's something special about our industry, isn't it? Adrian, it's been an absolute pleasure today. Thank you so much.
Look, it's been my pleasure, especially talking to someone who's always the best dressed person in the room. Thank you, and thank you for keeping the bow tie alive.
Thank you.